Happy Saturday, everybody. Um, Today I'm going to talk for just a little bit about, well, probably a lot because you guys know me. I have had several people request just basically some information on how to make some of the different annotations appear. And we've done a lot of videos about this in the past, but I'm kind of coming to terms with the fact that most likely um, I probably went too fast with a lot of it. And so I'm going to take just a little bit of time today to do a short little segment on creating a 3D object within SketchUp. We're just going to make a little 3D text object. And then I am going to write an incredibly short, simple UCS without a bunch of complicated conditions or anything at all like that will show you how to make this very simple 3D text entity appear. And my hopes are that this fairly simple video is going to help give you guys the basic building blocks to pursue this further, really as far as you'd like. So yeah, here we are. So I'm in SketchUp Make 2017. Depending on which version of Cabinet Vision you are using, you need to save your SketchUp objects as a very specific version. For version 12, when I save my SketchUp objects, I believe I'm normally saving it compatible for SketchUp 2013. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing. But if you're in a later version of the software, then you can probably save it in a later version of SketchUp. If you have trouble finding a copy of SketchUp Make 2017, hop onto Discord, send me a message, and I will do my best to either get you a link to download it, or if I can't find any links to download it anymore, I might actually have the installer somewhere, and perhaps I could zip it up and send it to you. So, all right, here we go. So, I'm not a SketchUp expert by any means, but I know at least enough to get a few things done in terms of like very basic modeling. So one of the first things that you're going to want to do is not click preferences. It's the wrong one. Model info. When you go to model info, you've got this units option here. And if you happen to be a metric shop and you're more comfortable working in metric, then go ahead and switch it from inches to millimeters. I am more comfortable with imperial values, so I'm going to stick with inches. But when you first install SketchUp, there's a good chance that your precision will not be set to, the precision that you're maybe used to using in Cabinet Vision. So it's worth it to come in here and just get this set up as best you can. I have length snapping enabled in 1-inch increments. We're not really going to use that for this video, but I figured I'd go over this briefly anyway. And then if you happen to be drawing any angles, you can change, the degrees that your angles will snap to when you're drawing. And you can also change the precision for the angles. So, if you wanted 12.149 degrees, because you really care that much about your angle precision, then you're going to want to go with 3 decimal places here. So anyway, I've got my settings the way I would like them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a 3D text entity that says "Hello World." I mean, I feel like that's kind of appropriate for an introductory video into something that is at least sort of related to programming. And in case you're not familiar with it, "Hello World" is pretty much the first programming exercise every single language you will learn teaches. Maybe not every single one, but most of the ones that I've spent any time trying to learn anything about, that's where you start. So you can click on Tools and scroll down here to 3D Text. And what you're going to want to do is pick a text that doesn't have a whole lot of, like, this one here would be absolutely positively horrible. This particular text is going to give you way more snap points than you want. It's going to make your software run considerably slower if you're showing it everywhere. that's a good example of what you don't want to use. A good example of something you might want to use, though, is, let's see. So Arial is not bad. I think the text that I tend to use most, my mouse will stop freaking out here, is this one. I'm not positive, but I think this is the text I have for a lot of my entities. It's fairly simple when you type in all caps, as I tend to, but there are even better ones for sure. Simple is best. And, you know, one of the kind of unfortunate things about this is that simple text isn't necessarily going to align with the type of text that you tend to use in your shop drawings. So sorry, slight distraction there. So basically, try to find the simplest text that you can for the purposes that you're for your needs. Try to make it the same text as you use if you can stand to. That way your shop drawings are consistent. But go with simple if you can. So anyway, I do not like that W. I just finished saying like use this one. I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to. That's not bad. It's fairly simple. How about that one? Now, whether you want to do all caps or not is up to you. So before I click place and put this down, right, you can change your alignment if you want to. It's not really a big deal because eventually you're going to import into Capnavision and modify it there anyway. And then the height doesn't necessarily matter either because you can change this at any time. But you do want to extrude it, and I found that extruding by 0.001 inches is what works best for me. And you're also going to want to check form filled and then obviously extruded. So man, I'm really not liking this text either. So I'm just going to go with Arial. Keep it pretty basic, right? And that's actually not bad. It's not too curvy. The R is going to have a lot of snap points. The D, the O obviously is going to. If you could find an O that is a little more like oval shaped, maybe that would be better, but whatever. So at this point, you're done with SketchUp, fortunately. At this point, you're going to want to do a file save as. And so we're going to have to hold on for just a minute here while my stuff loads up. I'm not really sure what's going on with my laptop. I think it's maybe getting close to kind of dying. We'll see. But yeah, sorry for the delay. We're just waiting. But when this does come up, and let me interact with it, we'll do save as type, and we'll select the year or version that we're going to save it as. I'm definitely going to have to edit this out when we upload this video. So I'm just going to let that go for now. And I'm going to go ahead and just do the next step here. So whenever you're going to dim an object in Capnavision, you want to create a material for it. And I have a catalog here in my material manager called UCS Added 3D Objects. And as you can see, that's kind of where I keep pretty much all of my stuff. So go ahead and create a catalog if you don't have one. And then you want to make a new material. And I generally make this miscellaneous. As you can see, all of my types are miscellaneous. And I normally make the name the same thing that the 3D text says. So Hello World 3D Text is the name, and then, yeah, I don't know, right? You can really name the description whatever you want. You can name the name whatever you want. It doesn't actually matter, but try to be consistent with it. So once you create this, let's see if I can save my SketchUp thing yet. Wonderful, okay. So I also like to put my stuff all into one folder, right? So I've got this data and models where I tend to put this stuff at, SketchUp models, and then categories. So 3D text, and we are gonna call this Hello World. .skp. We're going to pick the appropriate SketchUp version that will work with your Cabinet Vision version. So go ahead and save it, and at this point we can close SketchUp. I was going to take us here next to create a material, but we did it in the meantime while I was kind of working through that slowness of saving. So at this point, now that I've created the material, I want to right-click it, go to Properties, and we need to make sure that we turn the model on. So that needs to be switched to a true. And then I think if you come back in here, now you can click on model. You might have been able to without closing it. I don't remember. But so at this point, we're going to go into the model editor. And if you haven't spent much time in the model editor, it can be a little confusing, unfortunately, but just spend some time with it. You'll get comfortable. You can't really hurt anything in here. So what we're going to do is we've got this primary work plane and this object called assembly. Now, we don't really care about the object called assembly. All we are really focused on is this primary work plane. And when we select the primary work plane, you'll notice we can add hardware, add a work plane, while when we've got the assembly selected, not so much, okay? So the primary work plane is kind of like, it's the thing that we add with the UCS, basically. So we're gonna add hardware. Oh, we get to wait again on this, wonderful. So how was your day? I hope it was good. I had an interesting day today. It's the last day of an on-site visit that I had with somebody. Oh man, apparently my computer does not want to listen to me. It went way faster than I expected. That's great. Okay, so what we're looking for here is Hello World. I wonder if it's SKP. All right, so when we bring it in, you can kind of rotate around and see what's going on in here, but I like to flip it in such a way that we're staring at it head on. And check your poly count when you're importing items. 752 is pretty high, honestly. Cabinet Vision might have something to say about it. I'm not sure. As far as these options go, as many times as I've done this, I still don't really understand a whole lot about what these different features are. There's some information in the help file, but it's vague at best. So all I can really suggest is if you import something and you don't like it, try importing again and try some of these options out. Yeah, that's really the only advice I've got, right? So, and the other thing is you probably don't really want to scale this. I mean, you can if you want to make it bigger for some reason, but I don't really see any good reason to do that, to be honest. So, again, pretty straightforward so far. We just clicked import, we selected what we wanted to bring in, and we click OK. So, as you can see, the reference point for this Hello World is the lower left, and that is dead center in this primary work plane. So when we've got this object selected, there's a few different things over here. We've got the name, which is Chrome. I actually normally just change my 3D objects as often as I can to just say black, because I normally dim these as like a black color. And then the description, I don't really need all of this extra stuff on here, so I'm just going to take it out. And I try to not have spaces in the things that I enter into Cabinet Vision, just out of practice, right? So if you wanted to be able to change the finish of your product, of your 3D text that you're bringing in, don't leave it, or you can leave it as automatic, and then when you select your finish within Cabinet Vision after it's been added, this object will kind of hold on to that. But I normally just make these system black. Finish type none is fine. I set my texture to blank because I just want it to be a black object. So then from this point, if you're familiar with working with Cabinet Vision, you will know that objects all really have like a reference point, and that reference point typically is back, bottom, left. So if you add a new part into Cabinet Vision, it's going to show up. If you add a part to Cabinet Vision in the front orientation, I should say, that's the default orientation of any object, and the reference point will be the back, bottom, left. And there's nothing really wrong with that, but something that's neat about when you're adding something here in the model editor is you can define the reference point of whatever it is you're adding by basically moving the object around in relation to this work plane. So if I wanted my reference point when I actually add this object in Cabinet Vision, if I wanted to manually add it to be like the center here, then I could go in the X, because we see here the dx of this object is about 20 inches and the dy is about 2 inches. So if we wanted to move it over so that it's centered, we could just create a fairly simple equation here, which will be dx, which is this part's own width value, or dx value, divided by 2. Now that's actually going to shift it to the right, which is not what we want to do, so we want to make sure and make that a negative value, so we go left half its width. And now as you can see, we're centered left to right. Now if you really wanted to make this centered, truly, you could also come in here to your y equation and you could go minus dy divided by 2. And that's going to center this object right here on the work plane. So from here, if we look at this in 3D, right, we've got this nice hello world thing going on. And if you were to fill it, you can see, right, it's just black text, hello world. Believe it or not, we're done here with the model editor. It's actually not that complicated. It gets tough when you've got a lot of different objects that you're trying to build into the same thing, but for something like just 3D text like this, it's actually pretty straightforward. So we're going to save our changes, go ahead and click return, and click return. And at this point, what we want to do is we want to create a new job. And again, what we're going to do here is very, very simple. We're actually maybe, I don't know, two to 3 minutes, I hope, unless I talk a bunch, two to 3 minutes away from actually being done with what I want to do here. So what we're going to do is we are going to just place a base cabinet, any cabinet. It doesn't really matter. I'm not even going to filter what type of cabinet we do this for. So I'm going to create a new user created standard. And you know what? Shame on me. There's a very important thing that I did not do that is very much necessary for this to work. So we're going to go back to the materials real quick. So maybe 5, 6, 7 more minutes, right? So click on your materials and you need to, oops, it's not the right one, is it? Remember this number, 3118. It'll be different for you. This is really just an auto numbering system for IDs as you add products into Cabinet Vision. Whenever you add something new, it will be the highest number in your system until you add something else, right? But in this case, my ID is 3118. And if I don't remember that, I'm not going to be able to do what I want to do here. So I'm going to write it somewhere because I have a terrible memory. So I'm just going to place a typical cabinet here on the wall. And we're going to create a new user created standard. Call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call this hello world. We'll keep it nice and simple. And from here, I'm going to click finish because I don't trust the wizard. So once your UCS is created, you're going to want to click on this code button. Depending on which version of Cabinet Vision you're using, it might look a little bit different, but look for the piece of paper with the pencil or the word code, because if you just double click on this, it's going to try to take you back into the wizard, which we don't want. So you have to select it and click the code button. And we want to wipe everything out about this, right? And so the very first line that you need to have in a UCS is always a comment, which you start with a semicolon. Adds text. Right? Adds 3D text hello world to every cabinet when toggled. So very, very, very high level UCS, you need to have the very first line after your comment needs to be what the UCS is written for. Now, there are lots of different parts that exist in Cabinet Vision, but when you're writing a UCS that you would like to work on every single cabinet rather than a specific part, you write this for each cab assembly. And what this is basically saying is this UCS that we're writing should only work on cabinets. That's it. Should only work on cabinets. So from here, I said we'd keep this very simple. I'm going to do my best to. So I'm not going to explain too much about this, but when you create a parameter for a cabinet that you want to be able to control, the way that you do it is you first check to see if it exists. And if you know it doesn't exist, which we know what I'm about to write doesn't exist because I haven't written it before, but you're basically going to say, if this parameter doesn't exist yet, then right now I'd like to actually define it at this value. And so you're very explicitly specifying what you want the default value to be when you check for it to be null. So I'm going to call this ACC, because I always put a short little abbreviation with an underscore before my parameters to let me know that it's custom. And I'm just going to name it hello world, right? If ACC hello world is equal to null, that's how we check to see if it exists or not. Because null in Cabinet Vision basically just means it doesn't exist, it's not there. So if this value is null, then we want to create the default. So we're going to type the parameter. We're going to define the type, since I want this to just be a simple true or false attribute. This is a Boolean, which can be written with a little less than sign, bool, B-O-O-L, greater than sign. And then we'll do equals 0, so that by default it is false. And then we can close the end if, because we don't need to check for anything else, really. And the next two things that you want to define when you're writing parameters is the style and the description. So setting a style of 1 is what's going to make this parameter that we're creating appear in the sidebar when you select a cabinet. So style equals 1, and then right, we'll just make the description say hello. So at this point, I'm not going to go any further. I just want to jump back out of this, and I want to show you what this is going to do to our cabinets. So we'll click close, yes. Make sure your little light bulb is on. Close your UCS, and then select the cabinet that you placed on the wall earlier. And what you'll see down here is we've got this attribute that says say hello, and it's false. And I can toggle it to true, it stays true, although nothing happens yet, because all I've really done is create the attribute. Or you can toggle it to false, obviously, right? Nothing's happening, but it is switching. It's letting us control it, so like we're good. That's a good place to be. we've created an attribute with our UCS, and we have control over it. So what's next? We need to open up the job properties so I can remember that number, 3118. So we're going to go back into the user-created standards. Once you've clicked code a single time to take control of these user-created standards, from that point on, you can always double-click it and get right in. You don't always have to click the code button. So that was just a quick double-click, right? So what we want to do next is we want to say, you know, if I change the value of ACC Hello World to true, that's when we want to see this 3D text that says Hello World, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to say if ACC Hello World is equal to 1, which is the same thing as saying true, then, right, if this condition is true, then we're going to do something. Now, I use 2 equal signs when I'm checking for equivalence. So when I'm checking to see if something is equal to something else. And I use a single equal sign when I want to say this value is equal to this. And that's really about the only difference between the two of them. You don't have to use 2 equal signs, but it's considered best practice. It just makes it a little bit easier to look at your code and understand, okay, I'm checking for equivalence or I am defining a value. So if ACC Hello World is equal to 1, then we're going to say dim, which is how you create something in Cabin Division, UCS's dim black as new poll. Now, you can make this a poll, you can make it, I think hardware will allow models to work as well. I'm just in the habit of making them polls for whatever reason. You can make it hardware or poll, it doesn't really matter. But we want to dim black, which is just a color, so it doesn't cost anything, it won't go to the CNC. It's just a system color, because all we're trying to do is create an annotation. So you want to dim black as new poll. And right off the bat, what we want to do is we want to let this object know what material we want it to be. Because remember, at the start of this, we created a new material and we added the model to that material, which was our SketchUp object, Hello World. Hopefully you're following along so far. I know I'm going a little fast, but just, yeah. So what we need to do, again, is we need to now define the material ID. And we want this to be black. And so let me take a quick step back here. So when we're defining parameters of an object that we're creating, the correct way to write this is going to be, first you're gonna like name the object that you're defining the value of, which is black, because we just dimmed it, right? So you want to say the material of black, or the height of black, or the width of black. And the way that you do that is you say the object first, and then you put dot, and then Cabin Vision tries to help out with this IntelliSense, but honestly, I think that this just causes more harm than anything, and I don't really use it. So you can if you want to. I don't really like it, but you know, black dot, and then we say the value we're trying to define after this, which basically means we're defining, again, it's just a property or a parameter of the object that we're creating. So black dot mat ID, which is an integer, equals 3118. And if. That's all I'm doing. We're going to keep this very simple, okay? Actually, what we'll do is we'll do one other parameter on this, because I want the words to appear off to the left of my cabinet. So we'll set a negative X value. Just negative 30. That's it, right? This is all we're going to write for this UCS. So we click close. And again, this if hello world is equal to 1, then And then end if is basically going to prevent this object from appearing unless we toggle hello world to true. So click close, yes, close. Now, when we look at our cabinet, if we toggle say hello to true, we get this hello world appearing over here, right? And if you go into 3D, you zoom in there, and there it is. So if we move our cabinet around, it moves around with it, right? We'll get it kind of hanging off the wall there, make it a little bit easier to see. That's all there is to this. That's really it. I mean, there's more, right? Obviously, you can go as complex as you want with it. You can add all sorts of controls to move it up or down or in or out or rotate it or whatever. But in a very, very, very simple way, we've just created our own custom annotation. So I hope you've enjoyed the short little stream, and I hope to see you guys next time.